Today on For the Record.
And it's really going to be what we like to kind of call a front door to the university.
Point Park University focusing on challenges and solutions for downtown Pittsburgh.
One of my questions is always, what is the need?
I speak with the head of the school's new Center for Civic and Community Engagement and learn how Point Park is getting involved with setting the stage for Pittsburgh's future.
I think we're going to see a whole new downtown Pittsburgh in the next several years, and that's really exciting.
For the Record starts now. We welcome you to For the Record. I'm Ryan Recker, and today a university in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh is focusing on addressing the city's challenges and looking at solutions. This is Point Park University's new Center for Civic and Community Engagement. Our cameras were there just a few weeks ago as the center held its first big event, a downtown cleanup involving dozens of students. And this morning I speak with the woman in charge of the center and learn why she calls the opportunity a dream come true. So nice to visit today with Dr. Heather Starr Fiedler from Point Park University, now in a new role.
Yes.
Assistant Vice President and Managing Director of the Point Park Center for Community and Civic Engagement. Tell us what that's all about.
Thank you for having me, first of all. So our new center we're launching this fall, and it's really going to be what we like to kind of call a front door to the university. So any organizations or individuals, community members that would like to work with Point Park in any way, they can come to the Center for Civic and Community Engagement, and we'll connect them to the appropriate people within the university.
As you also further define it in the research that I did, it is defined also as a laboratory for cooperative exploring the unique challenges facing downtown and other urban communities. How would you define and describe those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all know that every downtown has challenges, and Pittsburgh is no different. But I think that, you know, as a university who sits right in the middle of downtown, it's important to us that we see downtown as our home and our students' home. So we want to make that home the best community that it can be for everyone living and working there. So we hope to work with downtown leaders to really think about ways in which we can make downtown Pittsburgh the most thriving, vibrant urban center in the country.
Another one of the interesting goals that you lay out here too is moving beyond what are called transactional relationships and creating transformational solutions. So often we all like to define problems, but how do we define those solutions?
Exactly.
So where does that conversation begin with solutions?
Yeah. I think the transactional versus transformational, first of all, begins with, you know, many universities, us included, we tend to send a lot of students out on individual projects or one-time volunteer opportunities, and it's really transactional. So they see, you know, a community partner may see our students once and never again. And that's something we'd like to try to move away from as much as we can. So rather than volunteering one time, you know, for an organization, we want to have a sustaining partnership where, you know, they know that like Point Park has them. They got this volunteering every Friday or whatever that looks like for each individual community partner. So we're hoping to transform from that transactional into more translational and transformational partnerships with the people among us and around us. And then I think that will translate into really, truly transformation. So we can think about not just the end, but in the Band-Aid, but the root cause of issues that we're seeing, and to help provide solutions through design thinking and through community gathering to really think about how we can improve you know, the community around us.
And with that, how you describe it there's more of a buy-in, more of a long-term feel and relationship there.
Yeah, 100%. We really want to build partnerships. And I'm already meeting with dozens of community organizations and civic organizations around the city to learn about what we're already doing together and what that looks like and what it could look like. And one of my questions is always, what is the need? Because we don't, as a university, want to just tell them what we think they need and say, you know, we're really smart people and we're going to solve your problems. We want to find out what they need from us, and then we want to support them with that need.
You hear Point Park University most would assume, well, this just relates to students. Does this go beyond students? Who all can be involved here?
Everyone can be involved. My goal is that everyone is involved. When I decided to take on this role, I was very clear that we wouldn't really define exactly what it is yet, because I believe that we can't create a center for community engagement without engaging with the community. So I'm inviting everyone to be a part of it. So that's faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community members and leaders throughout the region.
Because of your location, Point Park obviously has a vested interest in downtown improvements. When it comes to those improvements, and you've been at Point Park quite some time, a quarter of a century now, what are the biggest gaps in downtown right now?
I think that downtown is seeing another renaissance. So we had Renaissance 1 back after World War II, Renaissance 2 when the steel industry collapsed, and now I think we're seeing Renaissance 3 or maybe 4, depending on how you kind of calculate it. But I think that we're seeing a big shift in downtown away from commercial and sort of businesses and offices to residential and entertainment. And so what that looks like is going to be really exciting to be a part of. And I think that it's really just going to change the way that downtown looks and feels over the next several years. I think the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, the PDP, put out a State of Downtown report earlier this year that showed that there's over 8 million square feet of unused office space right now, and that we can translate a lot of that into residential space and mixed-use space. So I think we're going to see a whole new downtown Pittsburgh in the next several years, and that's really exciting.
Let's talk about the physical center for a moment, located there right on Wood Street within your campus. How is that space set up?
So right now it is really a blank canvas, and that's what's exciting about it. We will have a space for probably about 25 to 30 people to kind of work together on projects or ideas or meetings. It will be very much what I like to call a design thinking lab. So lots and lots of whiteboards. I love a good whiteboard because I like to just visualize things and to be able to write it up on a big wall for everybody to see, and lots of Post-it notes, whiteboards and Post-it notes. And so everything will be on wheels. Everything will be completely flexible, so we can change it from sort of a one long table to small breakout tables, or we can flip the tables up, put them in the back room, and have an event. So it's really meant to be a completely flexible space that can function in any way that we need it to.
Does that excite you to look forward to seeing this evolve with a blank campus? I know some would love to have every moment and day planned out, but is there some excitement in the unknown of all of this?
Oh, it's so exciting. And what I love the most about it, this is really truly a dream job that I've been hoping to have for many years now, as I've been working in community engagement at the university, to really be able to open a center and to do it with the community, and not just what my ideas are, but really what everyone's ideas are. So it's so exciting. And as we spend the next couple of months inviting people into the space and dreaming about what it can be, that's where the real excitement comes in. It really truly is a blank canvas, and we can't wait to fill it with people and ideas.
As a university, what does Point Park stand to gain from this, whether it's financially or from a prestige standpoint?
So we released a strategic plan a few years ago, and we have 3 basic pillars of that strategic plan. So academic or program excellence, student experience, and community engagement. So we really see this as a part of who we are as a university. We are in the middle of downtown. That Pittsburgh is our campus, and so I think that what we stand to gain, certainly we want where we live and work and play to be vibrant and thriving, but we also recognize that it's going to make our students happier. It's a trickle-down effect. So, and as students are happier, they stay, more students come. So I think ultimately this can lead to increased enrollment. But I think for me, what we really stand to gain is just the idea that we're a good community partner. We're a good neighbor.
Still ahead on For the Record.
Everyone that I've met with has been extremely supportive and excited about the new center.
More on this ambitious vision and where Point Park turned for inspiration. We welcome you back to For the Record. Let's now continue my conversation with Dr. Heather Starr Fiedler, the Assistant Vice President and Managing Director of Point Park University's Center for Civic and Community Engagement. There is such excitement. I see it in your voice and in your words, and this is a big, ambitious vision. So do you think perhaps this could be a template for other universities in urban areas in the future?
Sure. I mean, other universities already have centers like this. We're not inventing the wheel here, but I think we're going to put our own spin on the wheel, and I think that absolutely that can be a model for other places. In fact, most of what we're trying to do in the center, we hope can be a model for other universities or other cities. So as we work with partners to, help research and ideate solutions to urban issues, we hope that the models that we build or the programs that we build can be things that would be transformational and usable in other places.
Which schools and areas did you research in looking at creating your own center and project here?
Yeah, so I mean, we've looked at centers all around the country. I tend to look a lot at the centers in Pittsburgh. I mean, I think it's important to know who else is doing this work in the region and make sure we're not reinventing, the wheel or stepping on toes, but really kind of supporting each other's work. So I have really great relationships with all of the other schools that are part of the Pittsburgh Council of Higher Education, PCHE. But we've looked at schools around the country as well. There's a great organization called CUMU, which is the Coalition of Urban and Metropolitan Universities. And it's a wonderful resource for us because those are all schools very much like Point Park that are situated in urban environments.
I thought it was interesting that your group has done extensive research on how improving restroom facilities in downtown Pittsburgh will create positive outcomes for businesses, tourism, and all residents. Someone who reads that, I think, would have to be fascinated by that. So how do you arrive at that conclusion?
It was a great project. So that project was brought to our department a few years ago by the Building Owners and Managers Association in Pittsburgh, who was seeing a problem with a lack of public restrooms, but they didn't have the capacity to be able to really research what that looked like or what it could look like and do research on other cities. And so we worked with our PhD program in community engagement, which is probably the only one still in the country, and it's celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. So we worked with our PhD students to really research, what we had in downtown Pittsburgh, which really wasn't much, and what other cities were doing to kind of tackle that issue of public restrooms and how we might be able to use data and, information from other places to make recommendations for our city. And so we did that in the form of a report that we put in the hands of the mayor's office and the PDP, which they then used to help build some public restrooms in downtown Pittsburgh. And so it was something that I never thought I would become an expert on public restrooms, but it was an incredibly fascinating project, and I'm still very much a champion of advocating for public restrooms in urban spaces, because when we don't have public restrooms, whether you're experience homelessness or whether you're a tourist or even I'm a runner and being out on a run, to be able to stop and find a public restroom is important for everyone. So it's just a matter of it should be a privilege, or not a privilege, it should be a right, not a privilege, to be able to have access to clean and safe restrooms.
We'll say that had to be such a point of pride for you and the university to see your research go into action, tangible action and results.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, I think, the example of what we want to do in this center. We want to do more of that. And so really having the university say, this is what we're committed to. We want to do this kind of transformational research and work. And that restroom study, I think, was the example of, we know we can do this and we would like to do more of it.
You mentioned your work with the mayor's office and the PDP, Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. What has the overall reaction been from local leaders when they look at that effort that we just talked about, and also your bigger global vision?
Yeah, it's been fantastic, I have to say. Everyone that I've met with has been extremely supportive and excited about the new center. The first thing I did in this new role was to sit down and build a stakeholder map of who I really wanted to make sure we talk to. And really, we want to talk to anyone that wants to have a part of the conversation, have a voice. But I knew that there were organizations that we absolutely needed to have on the list because they were in downtown Pittsburgh. And my list is growing. Every time I have one meeting, I ask, who else should I talk to? And I get 3 more names. So my list is growing instead of shrinking. But the PDP and the mayor's office, and the Allegheny Conference and and the county executive's office were certainly very high on that list of people that we know are already doing this work in downtown Pittsburgh, and we want to be there to support them and to see what their needs are so that we can help support those needs.
Obviously, when you take on an initiative like this, funding is always in the conversation. And you were telling me before we got started here on camera that you're working with a very small staff right now, but that you would like to expand. So,
of course,
how important will that financing and funding be here as you move forward?
Yeah, it will be very important. As I'm having these meetings, I'm starting to create this list of what I call big ideas, the things that people say they need, and things that we would probably be really well suited to tackle. But in order to really operationalize those ideas, we'll need funding and support to be able to have the capacity. Right now, I'm kind of a one-man band with some support with graduate assistants and part-time staff. But as we take on some of these research projects or these shared projects, we're definitely going to need additional funding in order to support the capacity for us to do the work.
So how do you find that funding? Yeah,
I think that we haven't asked yet, because I'm working this fall to build what we think it needs to be, and then I don't want to ask for money when we don't know what we need to do yet. And so once we finish kind of this sort of listening tour that I'm on and figure out really what the strategic vision is for the center, then I think that there is absolutely a lot of support. Our foundation community has been amazing and very receptive to this work, and they've come to us and said, kind of tell us what you're thinking and what you need, and we'll talk. I also think there's a lot of corporate opportunities for funding. Businesses that are downtown have a vested interest also in making sure that this work happens and that downtown is amazing.
I think it's also worth noting that you and your team and your group there provides support to nonprofits. And I was looking at Project Impact being part of your effort as well. And what I think is interesting about that is the range goes from middle school students to college graduate program students that can be involved with volunteering or civic engagement.
Yeah, Project Impact is sort of the umbrella that we're putting over all of our various programs that really support young people and students in the idea of making their community better. So whether that's a middle school team who's working on our Student Impact Alliance group, or a college student who's in our Bonner Leaders program, or a PhD student who's in our doctoral program, we want them all to be supported and have the ability to know that they have a voice and they can make change in their community. And so we really see this as kind of a pipeline from middle school right all the way through graduate school, where we can help support that type of community and civic engagement.
How engaged would you like students to be with your group and your effort here in terms of using it perhaps as a springboard for more of that civic engagement, or perhaps a career opportunity? This could be great training ground for someone that wants to get into that type of sector.
Absolutely. I think that, my dream is that every student is engaged in some way in civic and community engagement. I mean, I think it's, we want to teach students to be good writers and good communicators, but also to be good people and to care about their community and to understand, civics. And so, we're working to getting more students engaged. It's sometimes at the very basic level, like come with us and volunteer and see how good that feels, to, let's think about a career in nonprofit. So I think that there are so many different levels and models of ways that you can be engaged in this work, and we hope that every student at some point is engaged in some way.
Still ahead, we have more on how Point Park is using this blank canvas to build a center that helps find solutions for downtown Pittsburgh's biggest challenges. We welcome you back to For the Record, and in the final part of my interview with Dr. Heather Starr-Fiedler, I learned more about the Center for Civic and Community Engagement, as well as some other ways Point Park University helps the city and the school students. Is really truly defining it in a concise, elegant fashion because you offer so much. Is that a challenge, perhaps? I mean, there's so much you can offer, but explaining it to someone in maybe one line or one sentence is that difficult?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why we're taking some time this fall to think about, sort of what is our vision and mission, so that we can define it, because people are coming to us with so many ideas that would take us, in lots of different directions. And we do have limited capacity. So we need to make sure that we have a pretty clear mission, and then we need to stay mission focused in the work that we choose to take on. And so it certainly is. And having to even define it in order to kind of build the website for the center, we do a lot of external community engagement, but we also do, basic student volunteering, and we also have a food pantry that supports our own students' basic needs. And so we do a lot of internal community engagement as well. So really, defining kind of what that looks like in, like a lot of small businesses or small universities, we wear a lot of hats. And so this center is going to wear a lot of hats. If we were a huge land-grant university that had lots of different centers, we might just be doing that one piece of, urban research or volunteering or the food, the basic needs support. But because we're small, we're doing all of those. So it's absolutely a challenge to kind of define it in an elevator pitch.
If I go back to the term blank canvas, I can see the excitement in you in thinking ahead to the fall and seeing what ideas are going to come your way, what people are going to come your way, things that you perhaps aren't even thinking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, each meeting I have gives me new ideas. I think that I'm starting to see some themes, which is great. I'm treating this fall and these meetings like a big research project where I'm interviewing and I'm looking for common themes and sort of circles of work, and I'm seeing that. I do think that, downtown is going to be our place-based approach, because we certainly are in downtown, but I think there will be some other themes as well. We're seeing a lot of need around youth engagement, whether that's those middle and high school students who want to be involved in community engagement, or it's, some issues we're having downtown with youth after hours. So, really kind of having that be part of a theme or a bucket, but we're seeing other themes like that as well that are starting to kind of bubble up in these meetings that we're having. And I think that's what I'm really excited about.
You're watching For the Record, and we're back right after this. Welcome back to For the Record. If you have a topic you would like us to address, just send us an email to news@WTAE.com. And you can also rewatch this or any episode with the very local app on your smartphone, tablet, or smart TV. We thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week.